Hey, everybody, welcome back. And it's New Year's Eve, the afternoon of New Year's Eve, and coming to the end of a crazy year. I mean, it's really, what can we say? The world is getting stranger and stranger as time goes on. And I can't even imagine what's going to come next year, in the next 5. I'm not even very excited about it, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm not nervous, but I'm not excited. You know, there's just, you can describe this life, and specifically this past year for me, as something like, hey, you never know. You know, things that you think are real or not real, and people that you think are real or not real, and everybody's just kind of going through their own stuff. I think we all might have some kind of PTSD or something from Corona, from Trump, from Biden, from all of this stuff. It's really crazy. Life is literally getting stranger and stranger by the day. And where are we all going to fit in? What are we going to be doing? Who are we going to be? You know, as the time goes on, you know, it's wacky. It's wacky. I was listening to some shows this morning, and I've been reading up a lot about these, where technology is going with the Metaverse, and you know, you get wrapped up in that stuff, or with Elon flying rockets out into space, and who hates him because now he's the richest guy on earth, and that doesn't make him smart or something. And I don't have a love-hate relationship with anybody. Well, no public figures, but you know, it's very hard not to admire the guy for being ambitious in whatever ways that he is. And I don't know every shortcoming, and I'm sure somebody's going to dig up something and say, yeah, but what about, I don't know, he made fun of somebody who had crooked feet when they were in the 6th grade or whatever. I don't know. But the old way is really becoming the old way. And I think that's part of the evolution that we really need to try and embrace. And the more that I embrace that, the more, I guess, uncomfortable I feel a little bit at a time, but I have no choice but to get on board. You know, I don't want to really be one of these defiant maniacs that refuses to change. There's this whole plan, and there's this whole life that has nothing really to do with us, that we're out of control in, and we're just kind of spinning through the galaxy. And if you asked people 30 years ago if we would even be communicating the way that we are now, they would think that you were crazy. You know, when I was a kid, I remember when I got a beeper. I was 12 or 13 years old, and I don't know how I got it. I stole the money from somewhere. I know I didn't earn that money. I don't remember exactly. Either way, I remember it was a lot. I think the beeper was I don't know, $300 or something. And it was a little gray Motorola beeper. And I wish I could remember the number, but I can't. I only have so much bandwidth, and I've definitely smoked enough pot and done enough stuff, and there's not enough, nootropics or whatever magic pills that they're selling now to kickstart all of that memory. But either way, I remember because I was in I think it was the end of 7th grade, summer of 7th grade, beginning of 8th grade, or something around that time. And I remember because there was a time when I got caught with it in school, because at the time, if you had a beeper, you were a drug dealer or a doctor. And I definitely wasn't a doctor. And I wasn't a drug dealer. Well, not at that time. I don't even know what a drug dealer is. If a drug dealer is defined as somebody who deals drugs, I think everybody dealt drugs at one point or another. I mean, it wasn't a full-time occupation. If I had some of this thing and I could sell it and make a few bucks, and that's what I would do. But I didn't own a drug spot or whatever, which is another thing, and I'll go into that in a minute, and it's very funny. But either way, so, I had this beeper, and I remember that the assistant principal, he was like this huge, big, fat guy at Kakiat. I don't remember his name, but he was annoying. I remember the principal, I think, was Mr. Pollock, and he was this other AP. And then there was Miss Wasserman, who she was like, see you next Tuesday. So, and I don't care if I name drop her because she's and she said I was going to be a loser. And she said that I didn't look like either one of my parents and maybe I came from somewhere else. And she was probably just messing with me. But either way, the vice principal took my beeper, then calls my dad and says, hey, your son has a beeper, blah, blah, blah. And my dad was like, oh, my God, he has a beeper? And they were like, yes. And they were waiting for like this hammer to fall down. And my father was just so grateful. He was like, that's fantastic. What's the number? And he went on this whole thing that he was happy that, I had a beeper because then that way he could just page me when I was out in the street hanging out with my friends, and then he could find me because by this time, I had journeyed out of the neighborhood and I would ride my bike everywhere, or somebody would have a car, and I'd be gone for the whole day at a time, and he could never find me. And that was nice. So if you ask somebody about that, like during that time, that any person could start a show and just broadcast it everywhere, people would think you were crazy, So I'm going to rewind a little bit because I'm thinking about the drug stuff, which was funny. I remember back in my day, when you wanted to go get weed, we used to call it Buddha. If you wanted to get Buddha, or I didn't call it pot till I got older. It sounds so eloquent, pot. Yeah, you got any pot? We used to call it weed. We used to call it Buddha. And during my day, the Buddha to get, or the weed to get, was skunk. The funky, skunky, chocolate Thai, hydro. Hydro came like a little bit later, but the funky, skunky, if you had chocolate, oh my God. There was people who just claiming, they had like, yo, I got the chocolate. And you were just like, oh my God, this is chocolate. I don't know if it ever tasted like chocolate. What the hell do I know? But those were the brands. And so branding, pretty good, if you think about it at that time, because everyone's like, oh, you got to get that chocolate. You got to get that that hydro. And like somebody would make up some story like this was grown in hydroponically or whatever. I don't know. I would just buy it. I didn't care. It had stems, seeds, sticks, whatever. Sometimes the stems would be poking out of the bag. They would puncture the bags. And some people would burn the top of the bag so you couldn't smell it through the bag. Some of it would be sprayed with things. And if that was the case, that was your lucky day. For me, I was never like I wanted something sprayed. But either way, you couldn't page, even then. I don't think you could beep a dealer to come and bring it to you. You had to go get it. And you had to get to the weed spot, which was somebody's house or somebody's apartment or apartment inside of an apartment house. Either way, it was a spot. You had to go. You had to, know where the spot was. And I'm not going to, well, it doesn't even matter now because they're all closed down. But I used to buy weed on, where did I buy weed? I used to buy weed, oh my God, I used to buy weed on Ohio, right? Ohio going up top. Twin Avenue, shout out to my Twin Avenue crew, late night, no limit. You know who you are. We were nuts. Twin, there was a weed spot up the street from my baby mama, my son's mother's house, up on North Cole. I never bought weed in Gessner. I never bought weed in Avon. I was always scared to go into Avon. Even though I had a handful of friends in there, it was just like, Avon deserves its own documentary. It was like lawlessness and all of that kind of stuff. But either way, where else? White Street, I think. West Street. Oh, we used to buy weed on West Street too. Anyways, but you would have to go and you would have to knock on the door and they would open the door. And if they knew you or didn't know you, whatever, if you fit the mold, you give them your money, they give you some weed, and then you go along your way. Yeah. And that's what it was. And then you'd go, and for like $10, you could really have a personal party if you thought about it. $10 whole. This is how you could break that down if you wanted to. You could go and buy a Nick, and it would be a fat Nick, right? You could buy a fat Nick, and it would roll a really good-sized blunt if you were in junior high school. So a good-sized L for a fat Nick. So now you got $5 left. What do? You go to the store, you get yourself a 40, $2.50. Then you got $2.50 left. You're going to need to eat. And at that time, Lucy's store on Maple and Twin on the corner over there, they would have like these chuletas, and they had pork chops. And they had them ready in the morning, like 10 o'clock in the morning. So you can get one of those, like a straight up fried chuleta. They would sell them to you for like $1.50. And the rest you could just spend on chips or whatever. So for $10, you could, if you took an L to the head and you drank a 40 and had a pork chop and some Wise barbecue chips, dude, like you were having the time of your life. That was everything, on a stolen bicycle or whatever, or maybe after you do that, you go and you steal a bike. I used to go into Blueberry Hill I'm sorry if anybody lived there, but I used to go into Blueberry Hill and go into like those, the storage units in the basement and take bikes out of there all the time. I did have a bike, but somebody stole it. I was mad about that. I didn't really care for it either because I had the yellow and blue BMX Free Spirit bike. My dad bought one for me and one for my sister. Maybe he got a 2-for-1. I don't know. Stingy fuck. But I wanted the yellow and black ones. He got the blue and yellow one, and I felt like a little bit like, not that cool. But somebody stole that, so it was okay. So anyway, so I'd steal bikes all the time, and that was my thing. So, yeah, sounded like a good time. And the next spot that was up the street from my son's mom, they also sold like hash. And these kids were from Nyack, and I don't know why they were up there, but people allowed it. And, whatever. I was not an authoritative figure, so who am I to tell somebody, hey, look, you're up here, you ain't allowed to be up here, blah, blah, blah. And I remember because they had this huge pit bull, and you would ring the buzzer, and they were on the second floor. You'd ring the bell, and then you'd have to step off the porch, and then they would look down and see who it was. I don't know how they recognized who was who. It was me and like maybe 2 or 3 other white kids around the neighborhood. So, and that was that. But, yeah, I'm not going to speak on them. Anyway, so then you would ring the bell. He'd look out the window. He'd say, okay. And then he had this pit bull, man. This pit bull's head was like the size of, it was like the size of a basketball. It was huge, whatever, maybe like a tire. And it would go and it would look out the window and you say, oh my God, I would never go and rob these guys or whatever. Because that dog looks like it would just mangle you. And I remember like years later, eventually the police actually shot and killed that dog. And then the guy was in the newspaper like, yo, they killed my dog, blah, blah, blah. I was like, dude, that guy did, whatever. Anyway, so I didn't even know what hash was. And they would give you, so you could get 1 and 1. So you can get a $5 bag of weed, and it was pretty good weed. And you get $5 thing of hash, which was it looked like Tootsie Roll. like the black Tory Tootsie Rolls, like maybe the size of your ring finger fingernail. And I would just bust it up and put it inside the pot and then just go do my thing. So that was that, you know. So in the same lifetime that we have that, you know, fast forward, you know, there's something like the Metaverse and Dogecoin. And I have a cell phone bill that somehow is like $400 a month. I don't even know how that happens. And I'm like the old man who now my son is going to go through the bill and I tell him, like, dude, can you take some of this stuff off? I don't even know what any of this shit is. Some of it is like all these like bells and whistles that are unnecessary. And I'm one of these people that I buy a cell phone once every 3 or 4 years, so I don't get the latest shit because that kind of stuff doesn't really matter to me. It's really for like functionality, similar to the beeper. Like I had the beeper, I never got a Sky pager. I don't think I did. What else did I have? I had a couple of other things, but then eventually I ended up with a phone, you know, a flip phone a few years later. But, you know, point is that technology is flying faster than we can even catch up with it. And that's what's going on. And now there's all of these apps. And there was no, you know, there was no Instagram, Facebook, whatever. I remember when there was no internet. But I remember I went to somebody's house, maybe in the 3rd grade or something. Was it the 3rd? I don't know what grade I was in. Maybe it was the 5th grade, whatever. But they had internet, but they called it Prodigy. So all of you researchers out there, somebody just remind us all what Prodigy was. And it would dial up and blah, blah, blah. And that was that. And I didn't even know what that kind of stuff was, you know. And I remember there were people that they had their own phone lines. And I was like a little bit jealous from that. And I don't know how long it took us to get call waiting, but we finally got it. It was like Christmas or whatever. And now, you know, we have this technology. The whole thing is in our hands. And it's very good, actually. If it's used in the right way, it's very good. I use Facebook, Instagram. I use all of that stuff for positivity because I try to be a positive person. I've learned to become a positive person because I was negative for so long. And it was a literal waste of my time. And I don't know how much negativity I was spreading around online, but I'm sure it was. Maybe. Yeah, definitely. Because I haven't really been this beautiful human until the last maybe 5 or 6 years of my life or something. 42. Maybe I was in my mid-30s, even though I've been sober for a long time before I finally grew up. And I think that's actually on par for everybody else. So, you know, what am I getting at? That what's going to come next year? You know, is it going to be more of the same thing, more technology of how can we, you know, another scam. That's what I was talking about with my cousin this morning. We were talking on the phone, and I was saying that, you know, we need another scam. America or the world needs another scam, and I think that's what this whole metaverse, crypto, whatever is. And I'm invested in crypto. I'm not bucking the trend. I grew up with people who are my age now that are literally have no social media footprint. They're the last of the dinosaurs, and they, you know, they don't want anything to do with it. Because back then we were like very private people. If you wanted to find me, you would legit have to find me. I mean, if you had my beeper number, yeah, maybe you could beat me. If you had my cell phone number, maybe you could whatever. But you didn't know what I was wearing. or what I was doing. I was out there living my life with the rest of my friends, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and I think that part I miss. That part I miss. But the other thing that I do enjoy about social media is that I can still take a lot of you with me in my day, but like in a positive way. Or if somebody's having a bad time, because people are as honest as they can be, or maybe as they want to be. But when I see somebody having a rough time on social media and they're not like begging for attention, like they're actually sharing. I grew up with somebody who shared some real stuff this morning, and it's somebody that I admire and somebody that I have a lot of love for the people that I grew up with. Even the ones that I don't particularly, that are not in my sphere. I'm not going to say I don't like them, but even ones that I know very peripherally, or ones that I knew, like when you're growing up, you know people for maybe an intense amount of experiences during a short period of time, and then you lose track or whatever. Everybody goes their own way. But this person, they shared something real, something deep, and I was so moved by that, because I value being as real as I can be, even if it's very unflattering. And they weren't doing it for an attention-seeking thing. They were making a statement that I went through a rough year, and this is the thing that happened to me, and what I thought my life is now different. And they were breaking down the walls of separation by just being their honest human self. And that was beautiful. And when I see stuff like that, I love that. I love that. That doesn't mean that every single passing thought has to be shared with the whole world, because many of my thoughts are fiction. Many of my feelings are fiction. So I don't really I talk about this kind of stuff with my lady now, where, as I'm making the omelet that I show up with, it's very ugly and it's very messy. So I can't share all of those thoughts with everybody, because I'm a psychopath as I'm sifting through my things. But I can share my experience with everybody, which is what this person was doing. And I got mad love for people who do that. And maybe it takes us this long in life to learn that we don't have to be, not that we don't have to be dishonest with each other, but we can be more honest with each other, and it's okay. And I don't know what kind of circle that they have, where they have that in their life, but I have that all over my life. And maybe it's because people in AA or people in NA or whatever, they share their genuine, we have to, otherwise, we'll end up relapsing or whatever. The more honest we are, the more honest we realize that we can be. And that's like a really good thing. It's a really good thing. And this person, it's a woman. She's mad brave. And I don't know about thoughts or prayers or whatever, but admiration and love is really what I sent. But anyway, so moving along, I think because we're from that time where we are of that generation where, we didn't have all of this technology, and now we have it, so we had a little bit of both worlds. We can be a little bit more genuine without all the virtue signaling and the other stuff that I also see. And when I see, and this is me judging, and I am judging, so if this is you, I'm sorry. But, you know, if they took, I always make this joke, if they took Instagram away, then you Instagram models, would you even be a model? Or are you only a model because you're on Instagram? You know, showing off all of the stuff, or the sugar, showing off all the sugar for what? You know, hopefully, you know, maybe, I'm sure some of you are making money out of it or whatever. And I guess it's innovative enough where you're using your tools in order to leverage and provide for yourself. So as an entrepreneur, if you know, I can call it that. Yeah, if you're trying to do something for yourself, I'll call you an entrepreneur, you know. But are you really making or doing anything? It doesn't mean that it's not work. I know that it's work. But what are you adding to society by showing all of your, just basically showing all your body off? And that's for men and women too. I don't want to be a hater, but yeah, it's just so weird to me. It's weird to me. And you look at it, you say, what is this? You know, because it gets crazier and crazier. The silicone, the face stuff gets crazier. There are guys that are getting like pec injections and what is it? Like the calf, they're getting calf inject. Like, what is that? What is that? Like, where are you? Where are you? That's what you're doing. And then so you can take pictures and maybe sell a product or something. I don't know. It's beyond me. It's beyond me. Maybe because I'm not that hot enough that I could just do that. You know, I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. I'm laughing at myself. So I'm secretly hating. But I just don't find any substance in that. You know, I don't. And maybe because I'm old. And maybe because, you know, I remember back in the day when rock and roll videos, let's say, what are you going to say? Like Van Halen, Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses, all these guys, the models that they had, like they had to be legit. You know, now you look at Tekashi's videos or somebody else's videos, and it's just like a piece of wax. Like they're not, you know, you don't have to have you don't even have to be real anymore. I don't know how real those people were, but physically, you don't even have to be real anymore. And that's that. That's that. So to go from knocking on doors, to buy your weed and beepers and whatever and bicycles. Yeah, I haven't seen a kid on a pedaling bike. I don't know how long. We're in New York City. All the kids have these scooters, and now they're like motorized scooters. And now they're like the little dirt bikes or whatever. I love to see the kids from the hood and the four-wheelers in the street. That I love. Old school Rough Rider style. I love that kind of thing. And I never learned how to ride one of them. And thank God, because I was a full-fledged alcoholic when I was 13 years old. So, and I grew up around people who kind of had those things a little bit, but I never did. But anyway, so that kind of stuff I love to see, because now it's almost like a throwback when somebody's got dirt bikes. I'm like, look at you. Now these kids, like they're riding around these motorized scooters. When I see you know what I want to do? When I see somebody on a skateboard that has an app on their phone and they're not even kicking, they're just standing and the skateboard is moving, bro, I want to just slap them off of the skate. They don't deserve the skateboard. If that's what they're doing, they don't deserve the skateboard. If you don't have stitches or scars or something that you earned by learning how to stay on a moving piece of whatever with 4 wheels attached to it, bro, come on, man. you are definitely a herbivore, whatever. I don't know what a lame, right? If I was a Mexican or a cholo, they'd be like, yo, that's a lame fool. Yeah, you're definitely one of those. So, but that's what that's what these young people don't know. They don't know, a pedaling bike with dogs chasing you down the street or whatever. They don't know about that kind of stuff. And I think they just become less and less, less and less, what's the right word? I can never find the right word anymore. I am getting old, but they don't have enough connections with each other because they're just connected to this technology, which is doing all of the freaking work for them. Where if you had to go to a skate park and you had to, learn how to ride, you'd make a friend that's an actual one and not one that you're like swiping away or one that you're liking or that you found somebody on some app. What is it? Tinder, Grindr, whatever. Like you can't, they can't even go have a conversation with somebody. Or maybe the ones that they're having are the ones that are online and maybe that's real to them. But if they saw a girl or something on the train or on the street or at a job somewhere, they wouldn't even know how to approach them, like with or without any kind of dignity, or maybe the ones that, they wouldn't know how to approach them. They wouldn't know how to kick game. They wouldn't know how to kick game. They would just know how to either be their obnoxious, insulting, stupid selves and then pray that maybe the other person finds it funny. Most of the time they'll be repulsed. But, there's no nuance. Everybody's the same. They're all wearing the same outfit, the same costume. They're all being the same person. And we're all headed towards that black hole. 2021, we went from being locked down and having the coronavirus rampage through. And there were people who thought it was fake. People thought I was in New York City, ground zero. I promise you, it was really real. It was really real out here. I saw a lot of the damage that it did. I saw those freezers outside of hospitals. I saw people being wheeled out of their houses or whatever. But with all of the technology and all of this fakeness that's going on, people got all this different information all over. Now we're being manipulated by it, right? Where you can manipulate it yourself, by just putting out all the positive things and trying to be good and trying to love people and whatever. And then what happens is that, these companies, they manipulate the rest of us with the what kind of news are you seeing or what's going on in your Facebook feed or in your Google search feed or whatever. And they had a lot of great documentaries that came out this year. One was, what was the name of it? The really good one that was on Netflix. I'm going to look it up right now because I don't want to be stupid. Hold on one second. I'm so sorry. I know, but this is my show. Deal with it. Social media. Netflix doc. Oh, The Social Dilemma. Sorry. And I'm not going to timestamp or edit any of that out. The Social Dilemma. That was something that we already knew. And now it's like super extreme. So now we have a whole generation of people who are just attached to this tool that's giving you all this information and you don't even know what's real. First masks work, then they don't work. And then it came out of China, then you're racist if you said it came out of China, but it came out of China. And then Trump is talking about bleach and this and that. And, so anything that he attaches his name to is no good. And I'm not like a Trump guy. I'm just a human being. And he's crazy. And that's that. But he can't 100% be wrong. He's getting information from the top people on earth, but he just can't really articulate it that well. So lo and behold, there's always a vein of truth in all of his like insanity. And then there's people who don't even want to recognize that because they're in their own stupid freaking echo chamber that if you're not playing for my team, then you're all the way wrong. Like, I don't even want people like that near me. Those are the most prejudiced, biased, self-righteous, abusive people that I know. And that's the truth. And that's so crazy. That's so crazy that people are really like that. Like, are you literally trying to tell me that every single thing that Joe Biden says is wrong or everything he does is wrong? I mean, I don't know. I know that as a human, he can't be wrong 100% of the time. I know that there's a lot of hypocrisy at the top, and it's on, both sides of the argument, and that's just what I believe. There are people who believe that the police are never wrong. And they've never done, and that's bullshit, because everybody's wrong. Then you're implying that the police are perfect. Like, no, they're not perfect. So then, what do you mean, that they never overstep their bounds and take somebody's freedom and disrupt somebody else's life, so that way they can make their quota? Or how do you think they get promoted? Do you think they get promoted for not making arrests and for not getting convictions or whatever? And how corrupt some of the criminal justice system is? Not all of it. Trust me, there are plenty of people who are in jail who deserve to be there. They called me for jury duty. This was wild, right? They called me for jury duty, and I went there, and I sat there, and it was such not a waste of my time, but dude, they were like, this is a murder trial, and we need you to be unbiased and all of these things. And they were really going through step by step, And I remember I used to say to myself, like, I can't wait for them to call me for jury duty. Like, if you're complaining about the system and then it's your turn to participate in the system and you're like, nah, man, I would never be on no jury, then you know what? You're a dirtball. And you're a scumbag, and you should not complain anymore. Because if you have the opportunity to do service, you should do it. So I went there with an open mind to do it. But then after they went through the whole litany of everything, I had to go up and when they asked why I couldn't serve, because I excused myself. Recused, excused. I don't know the right term. But number one, they were saying, listen, it's December, let's say December 4th or whatever, you're going to have to be here all the way till Christmas. And I was like, hell no. And it was like 8 in the morning till 4 at night, Monday through Thursday, they were asking. But I had to be honest with them. And it was somebody else that motivated me I was already recusing myself, not for the time, but because I had a real honest conversation with myself. And I said to myself, like, there's no way that I can honestly be unbiased. And that would be unfair. Let's say this kid really did kill this guy. Then I'm going to be part of a thing where he's going to go free, because I've never, not once, had a good interaction with police officers. Never. It's never happened for me. And I know people who have the exact opposite, but it's never happened for me. And I have a huge, I wouldn't say resentment, but I know how biased I can be. I'll be like, dude, no way. That cop is a freaking piece of shit. And that's that. So it wouldn't be fair to the victim's family if I was to let this guy off. So yeah, and you know what? I said it to the judge. When I went up there, they call you in front of everybody. The prosecutors are there. The defense attorneys are there. And I said, listen, no offense, but I think this whole thing is, there's no way I could be unbiased. I don't have good relationships with the police, and they've been liars in my life. And not like from a distance, like up close and personal. They have been liars in my life, and they have done things to myself and to people that I love that is completely unfair, and it's been an abuse of power, and there's no real way that we could balance that out. There's no real way that we can balance that out. And they are very apathetic about that stuff. And if there are police officers that are going to deny that, then they're not being honest. They're not being honest. Because even the cops that I know, and I'm friends with police officers, detectives, like I know them, I know what goes on. I know what goes on. So are they all bad? No. But are they all good? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And they have a lot of leeway. And if they were all good, or even if they just did their job, like I think stopping, number one, I think, writing tickets and all this other stuff, generating revenue is not police work to me, and that's what they do, a lot of them. And they don't do that in a very fair way. And if they did that in a very fair way, then why would people need PBA cards? Why should I? And I have them, and I have real deal ones that I can just bust out. But who am I? Right? Who am I to say anything bad about, or share my experience, good or bad, about the police department and their treatment of me if I'm over here with the get out of ticket free card? Then I'm not having a real genuine experience. And it's not my kid's not a cop. Nobody in my home is a police officer. So what does that mean? That means that because some of my friends are cops, that I get to do what I want. And I get to, but everybody else doesn't. Or when they abuse their power and then they find out that I'm a friend of somebody, that they're just going to let me go, which is crazy. This is why people record themselves. This is why people protect themselves. So either way, that's what was going through my head when I told the judge and the prosecutors. There was a few of them there, and the defense attorneys, that I couldn't do it because it's just not fair. And that was a moment of honesty that I couldn't do it, And then they made me and and there was so many other people there too that it was funny because the reality was, I felt free for that moment, that I could say whatever I wanted to the judge and to the other police officers there, who I didn't know personally, but I've had judges be not so nice to the kid when they don't have to be, and I've had police officers really be not so nice to me and not so nice to my son when they didn't really have to be. And I wasn't the only one that had that experience, but I got to actually let it fly with impunity and let them know how I really felt. Because if I do that in the street, the likelihood of me getting more tickets or getting locked up or whatever, it increases because the more you let them know about themselves, So I got the opportunity to spray the corner a little bit. And you know what? I was not the only one. There was other people who were there who had the same experience. And then when we broke for lunch, this young kid came up to me and this other guy. We were outside. I wasn't trying to really make friends, but whatever. And he was like, thank you guys so much, because I was feeling the same thing that you guys were feeling, but I was scared to say something. And I said something to them. And it empowered this kid, to say that, well, kid, young person, maybe in his 20s, young black kid from Brooklyn, because we were downtown Brooklyn, so you had to be in the borough, whatever. So, yeah, that was that. How's that? So where does that leave? Where does that leave us? Where does that leave us? Back to the technology. In a way, it's good. Now there's cameras everywhere. So if this guy committed this crime, he's going to be on camera. You can't really commit crimes anymore the way that you used to. So in that way, it's a lot safer than some of the things that used to happen when we were younger. And they can track you with your phones and all of this other stuff. And maybe that forces people to behave, and I don't know, or maybe it gives people the justice they deserve. Hopefully it makes the cops' job a lot easier than just like doing the McGruff and Bloodhound stuff or whatever they do. So by the end of next year, we're going to be somewhere else with all of this. We're going to be somewhere else with all of this. And I'm praying that, my kids really understand what life is about and they don't get trapped into the technology. And I see it a little bit and I try and snap them out of it. And I say, look, that's not real, right? And then when you have those kinds of relationships with people that are all over computer, a lot of it isn't real because they don't know how to, it's not that, like people who only do that, they don't actually know how to have a real relationship with somebody else. They don't know how to kick game. They don't know how to do that. They don't know how to communicate effectively. When my lady gets mad and she sends me like 3-page text or whatever, she communicates incredibly like that because she's eloquent, she's smart, she's whatever. Dude, I don't even know how to respond because I interpret everything the wrong way. I don't know about you, but I've never taken anything the right way in my life. So when it's done electronically and not face-to-face, I don't have any social cues. I don't have any of that stuff. So I don't know what somebody really means. I can't tell by the pitch of their voice or any of that kind of stuff. So I'm saying that to say that there's a generation of zombies that are just walking around aimlessly. And then I'm praying that some of them, now that even baggy jeans and all that stuff is coming back into style, maybe some of them will go old school and just actually get a flip phone and have no social media on there. And then that will be the cool thing. And then they'll have to go out and make friends and do stuff and interact and talk with people. I remember you couldn't just, like the stuff that people say online, they would never say in real life. It wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't happen, whether it's political, whether it's like when people, dude, when I see some of these, periodically I go down the dumpster fire in Facebook or in Twitter, when somebody's like bashing like gay people or trans or whatever, and I'm like, my friend, if I was sitting next to you and this stuff came out of your mouth, whatever, I'm not a tough guy, I wouldn't smack you in your face. But I would actually try to have a conversation with you about what you're saying. And if you were still like that, then I would consider just leaving you alone. Or maybe if I was in a bad mood, something else might happen. Very highly unlikely because I have a lot to lose. But the truth is that the likelihood of that happening is very small. The likelihood of that happening is very small. There's all these little, they're like little termites that they go around planting seeds of hate and seeds of judgment all over the social media, all over online. And they just want us to separate ourselves from each other. And young people believe that stuff, and old people believe it too. It's so weird, right? It's like, it's the very young people that are just like it's the boomers and the babies, right? A baby boomer. No, but it's them, right? It's the old people who believe all of that QAnon crazy stuff. Stop the steal. They believe all of that shit. They believe it. And then all the little kids believe that this model is, having the time of her life in rented clothes and a rented car and fake jewelry and fake everything. Like, and they think that that's real. None of it's real. You know, none of it's real. So that's what's so crazy. So the rest of us who are caught in between, like, you can't have a conversation holiday time, you know, about, like, say, like, you know, why haven't we been back to the moon in 50 years? Dad. Why? You know, you can't even have that kind of conversation, or, you know, with little kids, like, hey, man, that guy, you know, it took him 75 pictures to get that picture of him being jacked up in the gym, and he's on steroids, which is not a bad thing, but he ain't going to tell you that he is. He's going to make it look like he's natural, blah, blah, blah. It's all bullshit. And then there's a whole nother culture of people who all they want to do is have the validation of calling out all the other fake people instead of just being real. Sometimes I catch myself maybe once or twice a week saying something like that online. Like when it's preposterous, I'll just put, that butt is fake as hell. And it's so weird because I don't know why nobody tells them that it looks crazy. And then I look in the comments and there are people who are applauding. I'm like, dude, that thing looks like a basketball on each cheek sitting on top of 2 toothpicks. Like, you look ridiculous. It looks ridiculous. Maybe from the front and the way that you stand for those 4-second pictures, maybe you make it look okay. But walking around, people are not looking at you for the reason why you think they're looking at you. Even though, whatever, everybody has their own taste, and that's fine. But I don't know how far it's going to go. Because, you know, there's no bottom to the bottomless pit. There's no bottom. So what can we do? We can just take it all with a grain of salt. I always say what I try to live by, and I have to be reminded all the time by my people, is I try to tend to the garden that I can touch. Meaning, you know, what's going on in my personal life? What's going on? Where am I? Where are my feet? Who's on my path today that I can give everybody a good experience? I greet everybody. I say, how are you? God bless you. How could you go wrong with that? And I try to be kind and loving to everybody. So I hope you guys have a great New Year's, and we'll see you next week. We have some really good guests that I can't wait to sit down with. We have some other stuff in the fire. And that's it. I love you all. Peace.